Rami moved carefully through the broken ruins, his tool bag slung over one shoulder. The sky above was dark with thick clouds, and a heavy fog rolled over the ground like smoke. His boots crunched softly on cracked stone as he stepped over fallen metal beams and shattered tiles. This place had once been a spaceport, a big one, probably built hundreds of years ago by some alien race. Now it was silent, forgotten, and full of danger. He had come here alone to search for scrap. Useful parts, broken tech, anything that could help repair the power unit in his shelter. Every day he walked a little farther from the crash site. Every day the ruins grew darker, stranger. And then he heard it. A scream. It echoed through the fog, high, sharp, and filled with fear. It wasn't a human scream, but it was close. Rami froze, looked around, hand reaching for the flare gun at his belt. The scream came again, louder this time. It was coming from beyond the broken tower near the jungle edge. Most people would have run the other way. Rami ran toward it. He jumped over broken stones, past twisted steel, and pushed through hanging vines. The fog grew thicker. His breath became sharp, heart pounding like a drum. Another scream, shorter now, weaker. He reached the edge of a ruined wall and peeked around it. There, in a clearing surrounded by fallen pillars, stood a young alien girl. She had pale silver skin and glowing blue eyes. She looked no older than 16. Her long white hair was tangled and dirty. She wore a simple torn robe and her feet were bare, but she wasn't alone. 3 beasts had her cornered. They were large, the size of wolves, but with longer limbs and hard, scaly skin. Their eyes were red and sharp teeth hung from open mouths. Spikes ran down their backs, and their tails ended in curved blades like sickles. The girl backed away slowly until she hit the stone wall behind her. There was nowhere left to run. Rami didn't think. He just moved. He grabbed the flare gun from his belt and ran into the clearing. One of the beasts turned, growled low, and leaped toward him. Rami fired. The flare hit the beast's face in a burst of red light, screamed, and rolled across the ground, smoke rising from its head. The other 2 beasts turned their attention to Rami. Run. He shouted at the girl, though he knew she wouldn't understand. She stared at him, wide-eyed, frozen. Rami reached into his bag, pulled out a small shock bomber Weak 1, made for machines, not monsters. He threw it to the ground. A flash of blue light exploded with a loud crack. The beast stumbled back, disoriented. Move. Rami yelled again. This time the girl ran. Rami grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the ruins. They ducked through a fallen tunnel, ran down a cracked hallway, and climbed through a hole in the wall. Behind them, the beasts roared, but they didn't follow. At last, they reached a collapsed tower deep in the ruins. Rami led her inside and sat her down in a corner behind thick stone and rusted steel. He checked his gear. 2 flares left. 1 more bomb. No food. No clean water. He turned to the girl. She was breathing fast, hands trembling. Her knee was bleeding and a cut ran down her arm. But even as he watched, the wounds began to close. Rami blinked. You heal fast, he whispered. She looked at him, confused. Rami, he said slowly, pointing to himself. My name, Rami. She stared at him, then touched his chest gently. Me, she said softly. He smiled a little. Yeah, that's right. She pointed to herself, hesitated, then said, Zira. Rami repeated. Nice. To meet you. They sat in silence for a while. Rami handed her a water tube. She sniffed it, then took a sip, her hand still shaking. Who were they? Rami asked, not expecting an answer. Zira looked down, then whispered a name. Vex. Rami frowned. Vex. She nodded, her face serious. Is that a person? A place? She pointed to the sky, then made a motion like falling. Someone's coming. Rami guessed. Zira nodded again, this time more urgently. Then she drew a circle on the ground, tapped it 3 times, and held up 1 finger. 1 day. He asked. She didn't answer, but her eyes said yes. Rami leaned back, trying to think. Whoever this Vex was, they had sent monsters after her. Maybe more were coming. He looked at the small, frightened girl beside him. She had powers he didn't understand, a name he didn't know, and a past full of danger. He had saved her life. Now, she was his responsibility. Outside, the wind howled through broken walls. The fog was thicker now, and the beasts were still. Somewhere out there, Rami tightened his grip on the flare gun. He didn't know what was coming next, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let anything hurt her again. The night was long. Rami sat with his back against the broken tower wall, holding the flare gun in his lap. The ruined shelter creaked every time the wind passed through the gaps in the stone. Somewhere far away, the beasts growled. We're still searching. Zira was curled up beside a stack of old metal sheets. Her breathing had slowed and her eyes were closed. She had fallen asleep after drinking a little more water. Rami watched her, wondering what kind of girl could heal so fast and still be so silent. He didn't sleep. Every sound outside kept him awake. He didn't know if the beasts were just wild creatures or if someone this Vex she had spoken of had sent them. What did they want with her, and why had she come here alone? When morning came, the fog had not lifted. It was thinner, but still, hung low like smoke on a battlefield. Rami stood slowly, his back sore from the cold floor, and stepped outside to look around. No signs of movement, just silence. Back inside, Zira was awake. She sat with her legs crossed, quietly studying the broken tech scattered around the shelter. "Morning," Rami said softly. Zira looked at him and tilted her head. "Morning," smiled. "Yeah, morning. Daytime." She pointed up then, at her eyes sun, gone. "Yeah, this planet barely gets light," Rami explained. "Dust in the sky. That's too thick." Zira frowned. "Cold world?" "Yeah," he agreed. "Very cold." He reached into his pack and pulled out a protein bar. He handed it to her and she sniffed it carefully before taking a bite. Her face lit up with surprise. "Sweet," she said clearly. Rami raised his eyebrows. "You know that word?" She smiled a little and repeated it. "Sweet." For a few minutes they sat in quiet peace, just chewing and resting. Then Zira reached into the dirt and started drawing again, a rough circle. She tapped it 3 times, just like the night before. Then she drew a sharp triangle above the circle. "Vex," Rami guessed. Zira nodded. He sat beside her. "Who is he?" "A soldier, a king." She pointed to the triangle again, then made a fist and slammed it into her open palm. "Strong?" Rami asked. She nodded again. "Bad. Why is he chasing you?" She paused, then slowly opened her hand and pointed to her chest. Her fingertips glowed faintly blue. Then she tapped her heart. "What's inside you?" he whispered. "Cir," spoke slowly. "Seed of life." Rami stared. "What does that mean?" She searched for words, frowning hard. Code. Planet wake. Green. "Grow, heal, you can fix this planet," he asked. Stunned, Zerna nodded. "But Vex wants break." Rami sat back in shock. If what she said was true, she carried something ancient and powerful, something that could make dead planets come alive again. And someone wanted to steal that power, maybe to use it for war or control. "That's why he sent those beasts," Rami whispered. Zira looked away. "I ran, alone, no help. Then scream, 'You come.'" Rami was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "Guess I got lucky." Zira tilted her head again. "Lucky?" He laughed softly. "Never mind." She pointed at him, her voice soft but curious. "You know power? No fast? No claws? Why?" "Save me," Rami thought about it. He could have run. He could have left her to the beasts, but something deep inside him had moved when he heard that scream. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the human part of him that refused to walk away from someone in need. He looked at her and shrugged, because we don't leave people behind. Zero was silent for a long time. Then she reached out and touched his chest again. Over his heart. Human heart. He nodded. Suddenly, a sharp growl echoed outside the tower. Both of them froze. Rami stood up quickly and grabbed his flare gun. He motioned for Zero to stay low. Carefully, he stepped out into the fog. Wind had picked up. Dust and dry leaves blew across the broken courtyard. Another growl. Then, from behind a wall, one of the beasts leaped at him. Rami fired without aiming. The red flare hit the creature in the chest and exploded in a bright flash. The beast screamed and rolled away, its hide smoking. But another was already coming from the side. Rami ducked and pulled his last shock bomb from his belt. He threw it just in time. Crack! The blue flash lit up the area and the beast fell twitching. Not dead but stunned, he ran back inside. Zero. We have to move. She stood quickly. More come. Yes, Rami said. We need better shelter. We can't stay here. Zero nodded. I know safe. You do? She drew a line in the dust, curving left, then straight. Old place, under stone, hidden. Can we reach it? She looked outside, judging the sky and the fog. If we run, then let's go. Rami packed his things fast, handed Zira another water tube, and helped her climb out of the back of the tower. They moved quietly, crouching low, listening to every sound. The beasts were still nearby, but the shock bomb had bought them time. They reached a long, broken stairway that led underground. Zira pointed. Here, they climbed down into the dark. Inside was another ruin, but this one was deeper. Stone walls. Carvings and strange writing covered the place. There were no holes, no fog, just silence and cold air. Zira breathed in deeply. Home long ago. You lived here, not me, she said. My people. Shh. She sat on a stone bench, tired. Her eyes were heavy. Rami sat beside her. We'll rest here. Zira leaned her head against the wall and whispered, Thank you. Again. Rami smiled. You're welcome. She closed her eyes. Rami looked around the old ruins. This place had history. It had secrets. And it was now their only chance. Of survival. The beasts were still out there, but so was Vex, and he was getting closer. The underground room was quiet, but Rami couldn't rest. He sat with his back against the stone wall, listening. The beasts hadn't followed them down, at least not yet. Zira slept on a flat stone bench nearby, wrapped in a blanket Rami had, found in his old pack. Her face looked peaceful, but tired. Even with her strange healing power, the long run and the fight had worn her down. The walls around them were old, far older than the jungle ruins above. Strange symbols were carved, deep into the stone. Some glowed faintly blue when Zero walked past them. This place wasn't just shelter. It was something important, maybe even sacred. When she finally woke, her voice was low, still safe. For now, Rami said, they're not down here. Zira sat up slowly. Her long silver hair fell across her shoulders, and her glowing eyes looked around the room. This place was made to hide, long time ago. By your people? Rami asked. Zero nodded. My kind lived in stars, but some stayed here to protect. Seed. Rami leaned forward. You said that before. A seed of life. What is it? She placed her hand on her chest again, fingers glowing faintly. It's inside me now. A gift, not just plant. It has code. Code. Yes, like map. It tells planet how to grow again. Forest, river, sky, all can heal. Rami stared at her. You mean you can fix dead planets? Bring life back? Zira nodded slowly, but only once. Then the seed gone forever. Rami couldn't believe what he was hearing. Single person carrying a gift that could bring a dead world back to life. That kind of power could change everything. It could save thousands of lives or destroy thousands if it fell into the wrong hands. Why are they hunting you? He asked, who is Vex? Zira's face became dark. Vex was one of us. He was chosen to guard the seed, but he wanted to use it, control it, not to heal but to rule. to make others kneel. She clenched her fists. I ran. Took seed. Hid it in me now. He wants it back. Rami shook his head. That means he's not going to stop. He'll keep sending those beasts. Or worse. Zira's eyes locked on his. He will come himself. That silence between them was heavy. Then a low sound echoed through the underground tunnel. You're not a beast this time. Something mechanical. A soft hum. A vibration in the floor. Rami stood. What's that? Zira was already moving. Scanner drone. Vex is near. They rushed to the far side of the room, where the carvings glowed brighter. Zero touched a wall, and a small section opened like a door, revealing a dark passage. Hurry, she said. They moved fast, Rami keeping the flare gun ready. The passage twisted through stone like an old cave, leading down to a deeper level. Here, the air was cooler, and the walls no longer glowed. They reached a chamber full of broken machines, large round devices covered in dust. What is this place? Rami asked, out of breath. Old Lab Zero replied. This is where the seed was made. Suddenly, a loud crack came from above. Stone dust fell from the ceiling. Sharp beam of red light passed over the upper tunnel the scanner had entered. Rami pulled Zero behind a machine. It's close. Zira closed her eyes and placed her hand on the floor. A soft pulse spread through the room. Then she whispered, 2 more, ... coming fast. Not beast, soldier, soldiers. Rami asked. From Vex. She nodded. They will not ask. Only take. Rami checked his pack. 1 shock trap. No flares left. His tool blade was dull. But he still had one thing they didn't. A brain. Can we power anything in this lab? He asked. Zira looked at the old machines. I can try. Do it. I'll slow them down. While Zira placed her hands on one of the glowing panels, Rami moved back toward the tunnel entrance and set the trap. The moment pressure touched it, it would send out a blinding flash and a burst of sound. Enough to confuse even armored troops for a few seconds, he returned to Zira just as she activated one of the machines. A blue light filled the room. From the center of the lab, a floating image appeared, a hologram of a green planet with rivers and forests. The seed. This is what they want, Zero whispered. Life in the code, not power, but peace. Just then, a blast rocked the outer wall. A metal door was torn apart. Rami shouted, Get down! 2 tall figures stepped through the broken entrance, soldiers in dark armor with glowing red visors and long rifles. They moved like shadows, fast and silent. The shock trap triggered. Boom. A burst of light and sound filled the tunnel. Rami rushed forward, swinging a metal pipe. He struck the first soldier in the leg, knocking him sideways. The second soldier fired but missed, as Zero sent a pulse of blue light through the floor. Shaking the room, Rami used the moment to tackle the first one, ripping off part of his helmet. Underneath was not human. It's not like Zira, either this. One had skin like stone and eyes like fire. It hissed and threw. Rami back against the wall, Zira stepped forward and shouted something in her own language. The soldiers paused. She raised both hands, glowing brighter, and a wave of light pushed them back. Go, she shouted at Rami. They ran through another tunnel deeper into the ruins. Behind them, the soldiers were regrouping. Zira was breathing hard, shaking. You okay? Rami asked. She nodded weakly. They're scouts? Vex will come next. Then we need to prepare, Rami said. Zira looked at him. You stay? Even? Now Rami took a breath. Of course I stay. Why? She asked again. He smiled. Because humans never quit. Zira looked at him for a long time, then whispered, then maybe. Hope is not lost. Rami and Zira moved quietly through the ruins, stepping carefully over broken metal and cracked stone. The air was dry, filled with the smell of dust and old smoke. The thick fog that had covered the land was thinning, but the sky was still heavy. And gray Zira's steps were lighter than Rami's. but she stayed close beside him. Her glowing blue eyes scanned every shadow, every movement. Rami kept his flare gun ready. His eyes never stopped watching. They needed supplies. Their food was running low, and Rami's wounds from the last fight were aching. Zira's healing powers had slowed. The cold and stress were tiring her. They had to find something, anything that could help. "Keep alert," Rami whispered. Zira nodded. "Vex's soldiers will not stop." They reached the edge of a wide field. Cracked earth stretched like a dried lake bed. It was the dust field's an empty place that once held life, but was now barren. Suddenly, sound broke the silence. A soft humming, mechanical and fast. "Drones," Rami said, before they could hide.
A group of black-armored scouts appeared,
moving silently across the dust. Their rifles were raised, scanning for targets. Rami grabbed Zira's arm. "We need a plan. Fast." Zira's eyes brightened with an idea. She pointed to an old ruin near the field, a half-collapsed building, with broken walls and twisted metal beams. "We use traps," she said. "You know ruins better." Rami nodded. "I do." They darted toward the ruin, careful not to draw attention. Inside, Rami found broken wires and loose metal plates. His mind raced as he remembered his training back on Earth. He set up a simple trap, a tripwire connected to a loose metal plate that could fall and block a path. Then he rigged a pile of old fuel canisters to explode with a small spark. It wasn't much, but it could slow the soldiers down. "Ready?" Rami asked. Zira's eyes glowed softly. "Ready?" The scouts were close now, moving through the dust. Fields with deadly precision. When they reached the trap, the first soldier stepped on the wire. Crash. The metal plate fell, blocking their way. The scouts halted, confused. Rami lit a small spark, and the fuel canisters exploded in a sudden burst of fire and smoke. The soldiers staggered back, coughing. "Run," Rami shouted. Zira grabbed his hand. They sprinted away from the blast. But the soldiers were not defeated. They regrouped quickly, firing bright beams that cut through the dust like lightning. Rami ducked behind a broken wall, firing his flare gun to distract them. Zira used her hands to send a pulse of energy toward the soldiers. Pushing them back, the battle was fierce, but Rami's traps and Zira's power kept the soldiers off balance. Suddenly, a soldier aimed directly at Zira. Without thinking, Rami threw himself in front of her, taking the shot in his shoulder. He fell to the ground, pain burning through his body. Zira screamed and rushed to him, her hands glowing with healing light. Slowly, the wound closed, but Rami was pale and weak. "Why?" he whispered. Zira looked into his eyes. "Because you saved me." Rami smiled faintly. "We save each other." The soldiers retreated, but Rami and Zira knew it was only the beginning. They needed to move, to find a safer place before Vex arrived with his full army. As the dust settled, Rami helped Zira stand. "We can't stop," he said. "Not now." She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Together, they disappeared into the ruins, ready for whatever came next. Rami's shoulder ached with every breath, but he pushed the pain aside. They could not afford to stop. Not now. The ruins stretched before them, a labyrinth of broken walls, twisted metal, and shattered glass. Somewhere in the distance, the dull hum of Vex's ships grew louder, a reminder that their enemy was closing in. Zira walked beside him, her blue eyes sharp and alert. Though the fight had drained her, her glow still pulsed softly from within. The seed inside her was alive, powerful but fragile. They needed time to find a way to protect it. "We can't hold out forever," Rami said quietly. Zira nodded. "We must be clever." Rami smiled at her words. Humans were never the strongest, but cleverness, that was their greatest weapon. He thought back to Earth. 2 stories of old battles where small groups won against impossible odds because of their minds, not muscles. "We use the ruins," Rami said. "Set traps. Hide. Make Vex's soldiers waste time." Zira studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Human spirit." Rami grinned. "Exactly." They moved deeper into the ruins, searching for a place to make their stand. They found an old communication tower half collapsed, but still tall and strong. Climbed carefully, reaching the top platform. From there, he could see the surrounding fields and the paths the enemy might take. Good spot, said Zero, looked out at the land. We prepare. Rami set to work, using scraps of metal and wires from his pack to build alarms and tripwires. He rigged old machinery to send out bursts of noise and light to confuse the attackers. Zira helped, touching parts of the tower with her glowing hands. The stone seemed to pulse with life under her touch, as if the seed's power was awakening the ruins themselves. Hours passed. The sky darkened with storm clouds. The wind howled, carrying the distant roar of approaching engines. There. Coming, Rami said. Zero nodded, stepping beside him. We faced them together. As the first group of Vex's soldiers appeared, moving like shadows through the dust, Rami fired his flare gun. Bright red light exploded, signaling the start of the battle. The traps triggered. Metal plates fell. Loud alarms blared. Soldiers stumbled and cursed as they were forced into narrow paths lined with debris. Zero raised her hands, sending waves of blue energy that slowed their advance. The ruins around them seemed to breathe, vines creeping from cracks in the stone, twisting and blocking passages. Rami fought with all his strength, throwing makeshift grenades and striking with his tool blade. His wounds throbbed, but his heart was steady. Hold the line, shouted. The soldiers pressed forward, but Rami and Zera's defense was stronger than expected. One by one, the enemy fell back. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the chaos. Rami turned to see one of the soldiers firing a heavy weapon at the tower's base. The explosion shook the ruins, sending dust and debris flying. We can't hold here, Rami shouted. Zera's eyes flashed. She reached deep inside herself and released a powerful pulse. The vines and roots surged, repairing the tower's damage, as if the ruins were alive, but the strain showed on her face. We need to retreat, Rami said. Zera shook her head. Not yet. Vex appeared then, standing tall among his soldiers. His armor was black and shining, his eyes cold as steel. Give me the seed, he commanded. Rami stepped forward, holding his flare gun like a sword. Not while I'm here, Vex laughed, a sound without warmth. You are only one man. And one human is enough, Rami replied. The battle renewed. Fiercer than before. Rami dodged blasts and strikes, fueled by a strength he did not know he had. Zero fought beside him, her power growing with every heartbeat. The ruins glowed with life, seed awakening the world around them. When the dust finally settled, Vex's soldiers were forced to retreat. But Vex himself vanished into the shadows. His threat far from over, Rami looked at Zera, breathless but alive. We did it, she smiled weakly. For now, Rami nodded. Get fighting, because humans never give up, not when hope is alive. The sky was dark and heavy as Rami and Zera made their way through the ruins. The once mighty skyport, a symbol of ancient power and technology, now lay broken and half-buried beneath the weight of time and battle. Every step echoed through the empty halls, reminding them of the long-lost glory and the danger that still lurked. Zera's glowing blue eyes scanned the shadows carefully. Though her strength had grown, the fight had drained her. The seed inside her pulsed softly, its power a fragile flame in a storm. Rami could see the fatigue in her face, but he also saw the fierce determination burning behind her eyes. We're close, she whispered. Rami nodded. This is the place. Skyport's control tower stood, tall but cracked, its windows shattered and walls scorched. From here, they could signal for help or escape if the chance came. But they both knew it would not be easy. Vex's forces were closing fast as they approached the tower's entrance. Sudden noise froze them in place, a low mechanical hum, growing louder. Soldiers in black armor appeared from the shadows, their red visors glowing like eyes of fire. Rami gripped his flare gun. This is it. The battle began. Vex's soldiers moved like shadows, attacking with speed and precision. Rami fought fiercely, dodging blasts and striking with his tool blade whenever he could. Zero called upon the seed's power, sending waves of blue energy that bent the broken metal and stone around them. But the soldiers were relentless. One grabbed Zira's arm, pulling her back. Rami dashed forward and struck the soldier down, but more came. Then, from the far side of the skyport, a tall figure stepped forward. Commander Vex himself. His black armor gleamed under the stormy sky, and his eyes burned with cruel intent. He grabbed Zira with one clawed hand, lifting her into the air. "Give me the seed," he demanded, "or watch your world die." Rami's heart pounded. He charged forward, wielding his plasma blade, made from scavenged parts. The fight was brutal. Sparks flew as blade met armor, each strike harder than the last. Vex was strong, but Rami was driven by something greater, the human spirit. He refused to back down. As the battle raged, Zira struggled in Vex's grip. Then she reached deep within herself and released a powerful wave of energy from the seed. The light burst forth like the rising sun, flooding the skyport with green vines and glowing roots. The ruins seemed to come alive, wrapping around Vex and his soldiers. The vines tore at their armor, forcing them back. Vex screamed in rage and vanished into the shadows. His threat not ended, but delayed. When silence fell, Rami sank to his knees, exhausted but victorious. Zira smiled weakly. The seed, it grows. Rami reached out, taking her hand. We saved it. We saved her. Together, they looked up at the dark sky, hopeful that a new dawn was coming. The sky over Thalos 7 was finally calm. No storms, no red dust. Just a quiet wind brushing against the colony's towers. Inside the main control hall, the colony's council had gathered. Faces were serious. Everyone waited for answers, Captain. Dorn stood in the center, arms behind his back. The artifact is not dangerous, he said. We had it under control. But the outsiders, they interfered. Just then, the door opened. Vexa entered. She wore no armor, no weapons, only a simple jacket and calm eyes. Ben walked beside her, holding a small tablet with all the proof they had collected. The room fell quiet. Vexa didn't shout. She didn't argue. She walked to the center and looked directly at the council members. Captain Dorn is not telling the truth, she said. Her voice was steady. The artifact was never under control. He hid the truth from you, Dorn scoffed. You are not part of this colony. Why should anyone listen to you? Ben stepped forward. Then listen to this. He tapped the tablet. The screens in the room lit up. Reports, old files, video logs, recordings of Dorn ignoring warnings about the artifact. Even messages where he told engineers to stay silent. One council member looked surprised. This can't be real, Vexa nodded. It is. Captain Dorn kept the artifact's power hidden. When we shut it down, we saved the colony from a disaster. Another council member asked, and is it safe now? Ben answered yes, but it should not stay here. Needs to be moved far away before someone tries to use it again. Silence filled the room. Then the oldest council member stood up. Captain Dorn, he said, you are removed from duty. A vote will be held for your replacement. Till then, all operations will stop. Dorn opened his mouth, but no words. Kame Vexa stepped forward and placed something on the table. It was Ben's old wrench. This is what stopped the artifact, she said. Not a weapon, just a tool. In the hands of someone brave, she turned to Ben. He looked down, a little embarrassed, but proud. Later that evening, the colony lights dimmed. Ben sat alone outside, watching the stars. The metal cylinder, key to the artifact, rested in his lap. It was empty now, just a shell. Footsteps approached. Vexa sat beside him. You saved the colony, she said softly. Ben smiled. With your help? She shook her head. You made the choice. You took the risk. You believed something was wrong. And you acted. He looked at her. So, what happens now? Lexa looked up at the stars. I will leave soon. There are Other places like this, other dangers, other lies. I want to stop them. Ben was quiet for a moment. You're going alone? Vexa turned to him. Not if you come with me? Ben blinked. Me. You see things clearly, she said. Honest, and you're not afraid to ask questions. That's rare. Ben thought for a moment. But I'm just a technician. Vexa smiled gently. That's why you're perfect. You fix things. Not just machines, but people too. Ben stood slowly. If I leave, where will we go? Anywhere, she said. Where we're needed. Next morning, a transport ship waited on the landing pad, hummed softly, ready to fly. People gathered to watch. Vexa stood at the ramp wearing a travel suit. Ben walked beside her, carrying only a small bag with tools and memory chips. The acting colony leader approached. You really want to leave? He asked Ben. Ben nodded. There's work to do out there. Someone has to go, the man offered. A hand, thank you for everything. Ben shook it. Take care of this place. Then he turned to Vexa. You sure about this? He asked. She nodded. You. He smiled. Yeah. They walked up the ramp together. As the ship lifted off, the colony below grew smaller. Lights turned into dots. The sky above opened wide, full of stars. Ben looked out the window. Feels strange to leave. Vexa sat beside him. Strange is good. It means we're moving forward. A blinking red signal appeared on the ship's screen. An uncharted planet in a distant system. Vexa pointed. Let's start there. Ben grinned. All right, let's fix the galaxy.